G'day guys, so in my last episode I talked about going to a Nicolas Cage double feature at the Astor to see Willy's Wonderland, a film which had such promise but was completely fucking butchered by some awful action sequences. So today I'm going to be talking about the second half of that double feature.
Ho 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 ho, delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host Kickboxer, and today we're going to be looking at the film which fulfills Nicolas Cage's desire to star in a martial arts movie. Jiu Jitsu is a 2020 science fiction martial arts film written and directed by Dimitri Logothetis, a man with a long history with martial arts in his background, and it marks the 66th Nicolas Cage film that I've actually seen. I've only liked 22 of them, that's exactly a third. When my friends and I went to the Astor, we were really pumped to see Willy's Wonderland, but none of us knew a single thing about Jiu Jitsu. Until, between the two viewings, my dickhead friend Josh decided to come in and tell us the IMDb rating, thus ruining our attempt to go in there blind. Still, even though the score was pretty low, I tried to keep an open mind. Jiu Jitsu begins with the image of a giant asteroid hurtling towards the Earth. Shit, we need some oil drillers right away. Get Bruce Willis on the line! Then we see a random character bolting through the woods as low-budget CGI blades hurtle towards him, but he never reacts to any of the blades. You can tell they've just filmed him running and randomly cropped the obvious CGI in later.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Jump! DK! Jump!
He hits his head before we get the film's intro credits, and they play out against a collection of stylized comic book-esque drawings. And then they change to random shots from throughout the film that have been edited by someone who appears to have only just discovered Snapchat filters for the first time. And long, overly flash opening credits are often a sign of a film trying to stretch itself to feature length.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Then we start with The Rescue. That's a bit of a red flag as well, the fact that the film has to outline for the audience exactly what's going to be happening in each chapter. You know, I do trust the audience is probably smart enough to figure out what's going to be going on. Oriental-dressed Nicolas Cage finds our nameless runner who gets fished out of the water and stitched up by some locals. I don't understand why this film is emphasizing random words in the subtitles with colors. Like, you'd think I'm supposed to read that as, he can't stay here. The fish will spoil. See? It's really weird. The woman returns him to the US soldiers.
Hey woman, what you saying?
I
think she said they fixed him or something, like neutered him or something. She stitched him up.
You can't beat a classic stitch up, I reckon.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
She said he has a hole in his temple.
This is bad comedy.
What's your name? You have a name? Well, while you're working on it, I'm working on it too.
You should work on those eyebrows. They're distracting the hell out of me.
I'm with Army Intelligence, and I'm good.
Yeah, but your eyebrows aren't.
How did you wind up with that injury?
How'd you wind up with those eyebrows? Okay, that was the last one, I promise.
Where did you get the stitch job?
He can't remember his own name, and you're asking him all these questions? Yeah, I think you're with Army Unintelligence.
Zinga!
I can't remember.
What are you doing in Burma?
Did you hear what he just said?
If what you're doing here has anything to do with what I'm doing here, I've got a problem with that.
You got a bigger problem with your dialogue, because it sucks.
Are you Ronin?
Fuck off.
Work for hire?
And again, fuck off.
Did you sneak in the yellow cake, or are you in it deeper?
That's a hat trick. Fuck off. Cake.
Cake! Cake! Cake!
Found this in your outfit. That yours?
Can you clarify for us what that is?
Where's the other stuff?
What stuff?
Not sure.
You know, Daphne, perhaps we should just leave these two alone. I sense a real battle of wits shaping up here.
It's too soon. He's got a massive head trauma.
Well, that hasn't stopped you from trying to interrogate him so far. As the army tries to move our hero, he suddenly launches into battle mode, and save from a few moments where the attacks clearly haven't made contact, this fight scene is pretty impressive. The cinematography is really smooth, and Dimitri Logothetis is sure to use long takes with minimal editing to show off just how talented his cast are. Immediately, this made me optimistic about the action scenes in this film, and having just seen Willy's Wonderland, where the action scenes were one abortion after the other of excess shaky cam and terrible editing, Jiu Jitsu's fight scenes were a huge breath of fresh air. Of course, the only person able to stop our hero is Strong Woman.
It's the truth, Sierra. Who are you working for? Who are you working for? You know what I don't understand?
Literally anything at all? You seem very confused and incapable of logical thought so far, Chief.
Who are you working for? Who are you working for?
I'll get you, and I'll look like a bloody accident.
Why are you here?
Shut up! I mean it. I will end you.
Everybody out. I can take it from here.
No, you can't.
All right, let's cut the crap because I already know your deal.
Then why on earth do you keep asking him questions that he is physically incapable of answering? God, you're just fucking awful.
He really lost his memory.
Oh, so what was your first guess? The fact that he had severe head trauma from hitting his skull? Or the fact that even after you injected him with truth serum and threw a barrage of questions at him, he still couldn't answer any of them? After nearly 20 minutes, we're no closer to understanding a single thing that's going on, but a tedious comic book transition tells us that a reunion is coming. It's obvious the director wants this film to resemble a comic book, but outside of the occasional use of comic book panels as transitions, and the even more occasional use of slow motion to mimic comic book frames, he doesn't really do anything else to commit to this idea. And also, very few people would have actually read the Jiu Jitsu comic that this film is based on, so... But then the film gets exciting as Tony Jaa removes his hood and begins to kick some ass. After taking out a few soldiers, the film turns into an extended one-take fight scene, which I have to voice serious admiration for. Even though this isn't the greatest one-take fight scene, I respect any director who is willing to attempt one. And Tony Jaa shows off some major ass-kicking skills while the camera tracks him as he transitions from the ground to the roof. There's also the occasional touch of slow-mo, which is nicely done. Really? The Wilhelm scream? You gotta be doing that ironically at this point.
We gotta go. Let's go.
Dylan, you son of a bitch. Then we get another one-take fight scene, which is unlike any other that I've ever seen. The camera goes to the perspective of the protagonist and becomes a first-person one-take fight scene. While I like the originality of this, it gets extremely confusing when the character actually jumps out from behind the camera to fight the enemies before getting knocked back into it and merging with the camera. Does the director know what the fourth wall is? The fight continues, our hero kicks some more ass from a first-person perspective before exiting from behind the camera again to continue the confusion. Although, this does pave the way for a pretty solid one-take shot of our hero fighting off his enemies with a stationary camera capturing it all. After about 5 minutes worth of fighting, our heroes escape.
Jake!
Ah, so he does have a name.
You know you're risking everybody's life by being here, right?
He doesn't even know that his name is Jake.
What happened to you?
He can't remember anything.
Who are you?
What are you doing?
Who wants to know?
I do.
Who are you?
Who wrote this thing?
Are you really asking me who I am?
Yeah.
Really?
Drink every time that somebody asks a question in this film. Take a shot every time it's a particularly stupid question. And good luck surviving to the end if you do that.
You don't know them?
Drink!
What happened to you?
Drink!
Where'd you go?
Drink!
Our warriors all begin to get attacked by an unseen foe before the military rocks up, initiating another fight scene. At this point in the film, I had really mixed feelings. All the dialogue scenes were so aggressively stupid and never went anywhere, but the way the film captured action was brilliant. Better than a lot of mainstream Hollywood films are even capable of these days. And in this scene, we have a diverse group of skilled fighters using different techniques and weapons to fend off the military for a good while. Since the film had the same writer and director, we can establish that Dimitri Logothetis is pretty great at the latter, but pretty awful at the former. Amid the fight, Jake is incapacitated by the unseen foe before being taken away by the military.
Who the hell were those Jedi Knights that just took out my entire unit?
Jedi Knights? Jesus Christ. Start drinking, people. We're back to the interrogation.
I don't know. They knew me. Called me Jake.
Huh. Well, there's some progress. Who are they?
Drink!
Why are they here?
Drink!
What did they want?
Drink!
Then we get another comic book transition with the word Brax. They don't explain what Brax is until much later in the story. It's the name of the alien. There's no way to clarify that at this point in the film, so that's just going to confuse you. While the military is out investigating the unseen foe, the poor CGI blades start flying again, and with the inexplicable use of the in-your-face camera technique in Requiem for a Dream, it's even more obvious than ever of its artificiality.
You have to get out of here.
You think?
He thinks, but I don't know that you do. At this point in the film, it should have clicked for you that the premise of this movie is a mysterious alien creature hunting humans and fighting military forces with advanced weaponry and thermal imaging out in the jungle. And if it didn't occur to you that that is literally the plot of Predator, then you really need to do some soul searching. I have to confess, I'm not a fan of Predator. I've watched it 5 times, and every time I really try to like it, but it just doesn't work out for me. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about a B-movie knockoff. The villain reveals himself to the bad guy from Die Another Day in The Fast and the Furious, who in this film is named Captain Sand. I can imagine that Anakin Skywalker must fucking hate this guy.
I don't like sand.
Captain Sand shoots up the alien like an American high school. After appearing dead, he resurrects and turns the table on the captain. Our heroes run and Jake falls down a hole while strong woman gets hit by a flying blade. And she doesn't come back, she actually dies here. And that really brought a smile to my face.
Who are you?
Oh, come on, Jake, you should recognize him. That's very obviously John Travolta there. Seriously though, have you seen Face Off? It's a fucking great movie.
Forgot a few things, huh?
Yes.
I'm you in a few years if you don't get your shit together.
You know me?
I am.
What the hell does that mean?
No one ever gets what I mean.
Well...
Fucking lazy little dick! Fucking fuckers! Fucking
I guess that's true.
What am I, a fucking retard man?
Now, someone in your situation only has two choices. Be like me, or warrior.
His words just keep getting more confusing with every passing sentence. Nicolas Cage appears to do all of his own fight scenes in Jiu Jitsu, and watching him kick ass is honestly a pleasure.
That's my favorite chair. I knew you'd find it comfortable.
Of course, his dialogue, on the other hand, is just as ridiculous as you'd expect from him.
I mean, I've got my hobbies. I make hats out of newspapers. You see the attention to detail? It's an art. It's a craft.
Yeah, nothing abnormal going on here. Between all the fights, Cage tells Jake that the villain is an alien from a species that visited Earth long ago and gave the gift of Jiu-Jitsu to humankind. Then the warriors rock up again.
His mind's all messed up. He's crazy. Like me.
You know us.
I don't think he does.
So, insane Nicolas Cage appears to be the only character in the story that actually understands that the protagonist has memory loss. Our hero's journey towards a very artificial looking temple.
Hey, maybe I could get something to eat. Like a noodle or...
What, just the one noodle?
It's the comet you see in the sky right now. Passes over the Earth every 6 years and causes a portal right here. But when it's open, we get a visitor from a distant galaxy. I mean, he actually comes here from a place millions of light years away, looking for a fight with you, the chosen Jiu-Jitsu. And if he doesn't get it, he stays and he kills everything. Yeah, I could eat.
Where did you get that paper bag of food from? Do they have menu log out there?
If you cover yourself completely with this, Rex can't see you.
Advanced alien thermal scanning can't detect you underneath a very basic robe. Yeah, I don't believe that, and the film never explains it.
You look puzzled.
And you look like Tommy Chong cosplaying as John Rambo.
This was your plan, Jake. Your plan.
I had a plan.
Don't tell me.
You forgot the plan.
He forgot everything, stupid!
It's okay. Remember what I said.
Funny thing, it's very likely that he does not remember what you said.
Don't get distracted. This is all just noise. Just rise above it. Come on.
Yeah, that line perfectly sums up the dialogue in the film. It's all just noise. It's almost like Nicolas Cage just rocked up on set and started making comments about the script as people were filming.
Jake, I'm sorry, man. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
In another obvious nod to Predator, bald African-American warrior tells everyone else to keep moving while he stops and fights Brax one-on-one. And unlike in Predator, we actually get to see the fight happen on screen. Once again, the choreography, cinematography, editing, and overall performance of the fighters is all impressive, but with the story dragging on so much with a lot of tedious dialogue, the overall appeal of the fight scenes begin to wear off. Although they're consistently the highlight of the film, the overtly serious nature of the story and all its talkative scenes really impact the overall level of fun in Jiu Jitsu. And by the end of the first hour, it's easy to feel like the gimmicks have largely run themselves thin. Despite their best efforts, Brax ends up executing multiple of the warriors, and Jake finds himself knocked out only to be awakened by Captain Sand.
I got a license to kill you.
I get it, because that was the name of a Bond film, and you were in a Bond film, and that's what we call awful writing. Then we cut to Nicolas Cage frying up a very obvious prop fish.
I know something you don't know.
And I got something to tell you. Cage tells Jake that he saw the warriors previously fight Brax in the temple, even though in the entire awkwardly shot flashback scene you can see that Cage isn't present at any point in time.
So that was a fucking lie.
Then the soldiers regroup again.
Just remember the one thing you always have with Jiu-Jitsu. Leverage.
Leverage, 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 leverage.
That word has been absolutely ruined for me by Battlefield Earth. Brax battles the warriors, beginning with a female warrior with a Karen haircut. He gains the upper hand over the other female as Frank Grillo watches, making literally no effort to try and help her before Brax throws her into a spike trap. He also impales Grillo as Jake just starts running again, and just as Brax comes to face him, Tony Jaa jumps onto the scene to join the fight. At this point in Jiu Jitsu, there isn't really any kind of a plot anymore, it's just one fight scene after another without any flicker of atmospheric tension to bolster the film. I have to say, Jiu Jitsu is a film which made me realise that solid fight scenes aren't enough to carry a film. Even when they're choreographed and shot with such expertise, if there isn't any characters to care about or an interesting setting to surround things, they begin to just drag on. Then Cage comes into combat with Brax, and seeing Nicolas Cage fight an alien martial artist is definitely an image I'm glad to see. Once again, he puts up a solid effort, even though he inevitably loses to the spaceman.
I always know he was faking like he was crazy. So he could help you.
What are you talking about?
You really don't know?
Have we still not figured out that due to Jake's injuries, he probably does not know jack squat? Or is the concept of amnesia just confusing to everyone?
He was your father.
No, I don't believe that, and I don't believe the filmmakers would actually put that in the movie when there was literally nothing hinting towards this, and nothing rewarding to come from it being in the script. But then they also jam in a kiss between two characters who had no visible romantic chemistry at any other point in the film.
Don't tell me you two about to get on this hot-ass temple. That's real unholy. Not to mention we got a goddamn Martian on the loose.
What it is, soul brother?
Well, come on, tell me, you guys are part of some, like, secret agency, government probe, right, to take out Martians and shit?
I guarantee you when casting this character, the script just called for someone who was, quote, black. Yeah, alcohol will do that, but it'll cause you a lot more pain in the long term.
This has been very traumatic for me, okay? I still have nightmares from when I tried to milk our pet bull. You think I won't need therapy from this shit?
As much of a racial stereotype as this guy is, the fact that he tries to actually be the comic relief makes him one of the more memorable characters. And that's saying something, but not something good.
What? Think she says she needs to stretch, run, and exercise. Yep.
Terrible. Take a lap.
You know, this reminds me of one moment from Dungeons & Dragons. Yeah, no character should ever remind audiences of the character that Marlon Wayans played in Dungeons & Dragons, and if they do, then that's a terrible problem.
Anyway, I started blasting. Well, I don't see so good, so I missed.
All right, Nevins. Time to die.
Jake and Brax finally have their final encounter, and with Jake's kick-ass fight skills, Asian Karen's exploding arrows, and Black Guy's grenade, he kicks Brax back into the portal and blows him up, which according to Wikipedia ends the alien race, although I don't think that's actually true. He doesn't speak Burmese, you know. That whole cliched speech, that was wasted on Jake. Is Jiu Jitsu a good film?
Not really, but a bit.
Jiu Jitsu hardly tries to pretend like it's anything more than a silly martial arts B-movie, and naturally it has a lot of the good and bad qualities that typically come with a movie like that. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it can be a lot of fun. However, the biggest problem really lies in the writing. The premise doesn't even try to pretend it's not a repurposed version of the story from Predator. It offers no surprises, just an often overly complicated mythology around an alien that wants to fight people on Earth. The premise is very simple, but they complicate it with tales of legend and the protagonist having amnesia, leading to a lot of sequences where actors with limited acting range end up delivering really poorly written dialogue. Jiu Jitsu functions as a testament to the work of Dimitri Logothetis as a director, but not as a writer. Previously, writer-director Dimitri Logothetis collaborated with lead actor Alain Moussi on the 2016 film Kickboxer Vengeance, a remake of the 1989 delightfully devilish Jean-Claude Van Damme martial arts vehicle Kickboxer, and honestly, that was an incredibly underrated remake. It was a perfectly solid film because it took a very familiar premise, kept it simple, and focused on showing off the martial arts prowess of its central characters, all of which it did well. It even led to a highly successful sequel, which Logothetis made his directorial debut on. Jiu Jitsu shows him shooting for a more ambitious narrative, carrying the same keen eye for expertly choreographed and well-shot action scenes from his previous work, but also going for a bigger scaled story. And unfortunately, he's not up to the challenge. Jiu Jitsu's story is a series of wall-to-wall action scenes with boring and convoluted dialogue jammed in between them that drags the film without ever giving it a sense of atmospheric tension. And since the protagonist has no personality and Alain Moussi is hardly an actor, he offers nothing to the audiences when he's not fighting. At least in Kickboxer Vengeance, we saw the relationship between him and Jean-Claude Van Damme's character develop over the course of the story. In Jiu Jitsu, however, none of the characters outside of the outdated racial stereotype and Nicolas Cage's cross between Willie Nelson and Vin Diesel offer much engagement. Their over-the-top personalities contrast the overtly serious nature of the film and go to show that if Jiu Jitsu was a more lighthearted movie, it actually would have been way better. Jiu Jitsu has a pretty ridiculous premise, and if the script embraced that by trying to make more people laugh rather than getting so pretentiously serious, then it would have been a whole lot more fun.
But that's not the way it happened.
Also, I gotta say, the film looks really cheap. Jiu Jitsu does use some exotic locations thanks to being shot in Cyprus, but the visual effects in the film are rarely impressive. Occasionally they look alright, but the random flying blades and muzzle flares do nothing but damage the film's credibility. And for a film with a budget of $25 million, the special effects should have been a lot more impressive, especially since they're only used sparingly. I don't know how the funds were thrown around in this film. I know that $5 million went to Nicolas Cage for 3 days of work, but clearly not a lot of it went to the CG department. Essentially, the sole reason to see Jiu Jitsu was on the basis of its fight scenes, and to its credit, they are pretty spectacular. When Jiu Jitsu isn't attempting to have a plot, its wall-to-wall action scenes are nothing short of impressive. The diverse cast of talented martial artists all display an awesome physical prowess, which Logothetis is sure to capture with steady-cam long takes, a far cry from the shaky cam and quick cuts that burn in mainstream Hollywood and films like Willy's Wonderland. We see fights that include extended one-take fights, first-person one-take fights, weapons combat, and even Nicolas Cage himself going at it. And the way that Logothetis captures it all shows that he really does know what a good action scene should look like. So after seeing Jiu Jitsu, I've decided to keep my eye out for his future works, because I want to keep watching him choreograph some badass fights. He knows how to track his performers with the camera, when to use slow motion, and just how little cutting is essential when trying to show off your performers. The fact that he unites the talents of Alain Moussi, Frank Grillo, and the always spectacular Tony Jaa is exactly what genre fans are looking for, while Nicolas Cage's talents also come as a surprise. Like I said, he had always wanted to do a martial arts film, and Logothetis gave him a role which proved that he could do that. Moresi Crump also delivers on the action glory, as does Juju Chan, and Ryan Taran makes for a perfectly capable villain. Nonetheless, for all the impressive things I can say about the action, Jiu Jitsu does still go to show that a good film cannot survive solely on the basis of solid fight scenes. As much as I enjoyed all of the fights in the film, after the first half of Jiu Jitsu, a lot of the gimmicks had worn off. I'd enjoyed the campiness of the movie in the first half, poking fun at the ridiculous dialogue and marveling in the expertise of the action scenes, but by the second half I'd begun to find myself bored. The narrative had become mired in its ridiculously serious tone without the character development or depth to actually support that, and my interest had waned so much that every fight scene, one after the other, became one and the same. By the end, I was actually struggling to stay awake in the cinema. The film had fallen so flat by its conclusion, which should have been far more intense than it was. A few movies come to mind when thinking about Jiu Jitsu, and one of them is The Raid, the 2011 Indonesian action film with some of the greatest fight scenes ever put on the screen. The movie had a very simple premise, far less complicated than this film. It succeeded more because it had very little conversation and focused more on trying to build actual tension through the impending threat of the film's villains. This allowed the audiences to get hyped in between the fight scenes, meaning that when the combat did arrive, it was an explosive demonstration of tension that it had spent time building up. Like Jiu Jitsu, The Raid is wall-to-wall, expertly choreographed action scenes with a loose plot in between, but The Raid keeps things simple. It tries to maintain a sense of actual tension, and as a result, its serious tone is justified. Jiu Jitsu is mostly just characters fighting, then walking to the next location, then fighting again, then walking again. It's a repetitive cycle when things get less and less impressive every time until we finally arrive at a very underwhelming ending. Another film that comes to mind is Universal Soldier Regeneration, a film that I previously talked about on this show. Regeneration was a 2009 direct-to-DVD sci-fi action film which took the re-established premise of Universal Soldier and told a very simple story. Terrorists kidnap the Prime Minister's kids and hold them at Chernobyl, augmented cyber soldiers are sent in to rescue them, and a series of expertly choreographed fights occur along the way. While there is a large abundance of boring talkative sequences in the film which drag things on, the film succeeds by establishing the intense threat of the central villain before showing the hero steadily working his way through the enemy's territory, taking out a number of soldiers before proceeding to fight the mini-boss and then the big baddie. There's a sense of progression as things get more and more intense, and this is something that's missing from Jiu Jitsu. The threat is consistently held to the same monotonous level. Brax just fights and wins every time, and almost every fight begins to feel less atmospheric as things grow more predictable over time. Universal Soldier Regeneration focused on keeping things simple with its premise, and again actually building tension. Jiu Jitsu does the opposite. It complicates things and fails to generate any atmosphere. While Regeneration also dragged things on at times with its more talkative scenes of poorly attempted character development, its success in breeding atmosphere sets it ahead of Jiu Jitsu, and that's something Logothetis has yet to learn about. As a final note, we have to talk about Nicolas Cage in this film. The man has a very brief role in Jiu Jitsu, one which was originally written for Bruce Willis. And it goes without saying that I'm glad Bruce Willis didn't respond to any of the filmmaker's messages, because he has condemned himself to a cycle of some of the least charismatic performances ever given in a streak of video-on-demand films. Nicolas Cage, on the other hand, he tries to have fun with this movie. Nicolas Cage brings a natural, silly energy to a film which really needs a lighter mood. He makes an impressive case as a fighter, and even though he isn't perhaps as gonzo as you might hope, his natural charisma and energy makes him an engaging presence whenever he is on screen. He takes the material seriously, but simply due to the fact that it's Nicolas Cage, the result has the desired campy appeal that his fans will be looking for. Honestly, Jiu Jitsu is one of the better martial arts B-movies that I've seen in recent years, and I would end up buying that film on DVD, which is a rare thing because I barely buy DVDs anymore. Still, I don't think I'd pay anything more than $5 for it. Jiu Jitsu gets 5 Predators out of 10. Its weak script, derivative plot, mediocre production values, and overall feeling of repetitiveness do cause it to drag on. But for the expertly choreographed martial arts scenes, that should deliver something for the action junkies out there. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If there are any movies you want to see me discuss on this show, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, I've been your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.